Welcome to the channel, welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before getting into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and let's jump straight into it. I should do a new intro for the daily Ruben Amorim talk because that's the main focus of attention still. All the noise around the manager, possible replacements. There was a little bit of transfer news again. I'm going to go through at the end, but yeah, I think it's just going to be the case until it's no longer the case. But let's run through all the latest. Now I'm going to go through this first. Now this came from Clear, so they tweeted the following. Now just to give a bit of context and a bit of background, Clear, right? Did a story in the summer transfer window regarding Carlos Baleba that turned out to be correct. Got shouted out by David Ornstein. I think people have got a bit giddy around this particular source and particular site. Personally, I've never been on the Clear bandwagon. That clock behind me in the background, that side there, it's got no battery in. It's right twice a day though. But anyway, so they tweeted the following saying exclusive formation requests and sacks. So according to sources at Manchester United, Ruben Amorim was called in by the bosses at Man United for urgent meeting. The manager has been asked to change the formation to 4-3-3. Ruben Amorim was left speechless with the formation request. Certain Man United officials believe the manager is to get sacked is now when and not if at this stage. Now, again, I'm not necessarily on the Clear bandwagon, but according to that source of information, they're suggesting that Ruben Amorim got called into a meeting by the bosses and was told to change the formation, which I do not believe for 1 second. I don't think people at the club are going to get involved in that sort of thing with a manager, because otherwise what's the point in having a manager? They might as well manage themselves. I can see a situation where maybe they've had a meeting and said, look, you need to start getting results because we can't sustain this situation. But do I believe that he was ordered to change formation? No, I don't. Now, Sully talks again for context. I actually think is a lot more credible than Clear. He's got inside information, is normally right on things like injury updates and young players that we're linked with, and inside information at the club is generally a lot more reliable, in my opinion, than Clear. Obviously, you can choose to believe who you want. Retweeted on Clear's replied with the following on his tweet saying, Ruben Amorim earlier this month, I won't change my philosophy. If they want it changed, you change the man. Ruben wasn't in called, I think he meant called in, but for any meeting today, as they had a rest day, and yesterday it was a family training day. Please stop lying on my club's name again. So Sully Talks replied to the post from Clear, basically saying, stop lying. There was no meeting and there was nothing. Ruben Amorim was not called in for anything because it was a rest day, and the day before they had a family day. If you've seen photos online of, I think, Casemiro's kids and a few others, I think Cunha's kids as well, playing football and bits like that as well. So it becomes a case of who do you believe? Personally, I believe Sully Talks over Clear, even though Clear got one right and got a shout out by David Ornstein. Like I said, doesn't necessarily mean that they're correct all the time. Sully Talks I found to be quite reliable and quite a reliable source of information as well, suggesting that actually that is bollocks. But it just becomes a case of who do you believe, and you can share your opinions on it in the comments below and make your own minds up. Personally, I choose to believe Sully Talks. It makes little sense to me for the bosses and everybody like that at United to call Amorim in to now all of a sudden demand that he changes formation when they know he's not going to change formation. Like he's said it in his interview to start with from Sir Jim, saying I'm going to do things my way and I'm not going to change. So if they're expecting him to change now, then they're going to have to give him his P45, aren't they? That's the way I see it. But yeah, give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments below, as I am sure that you will. Now, let's continue with the Ruben Amorim news. So, Laurie Whitwell said that if Ruben Amorim goes, does that bring the spotlight on Omar Barada, on Jason Wilcox, and other people that were involved in getting to this point? So, I think that's why they would ultimately want to see it through, and I think they do still feel like it could still work. But I think they're getting to the point now where those questions are going to become louder and louder, and ultimately results will dictate it. I think it's fragile. I do think that the hierarchy want it to work because they know what the ramifications are, but I feel that you can't ignore the results if they continue like this. So Laurie Whitwell was going off of the reports around, is it that the they're reluctant to do or to sack Ruben Amorim based on the fact that it would be an embarrassment, and they don't want to admit that they got it wrong, which is a perfectly good angle to go down. But I also think as well on the flip side of that they do like him. Like everyone likes Ruben Amorim behind the scenes and stuff. He's just obviously not, too stubborn, far too stubborn, doesn't want to change anything, thinks that his way is working and is going to work, and clearly it's not and it won't. So, nothing's going to change, and eventually he'll end up losing his job. I don't necessarily think that it's, an embarrassment on the board. But then on the flip side, maybe it is, because they knew this straight away. They were the ones that hired him and then knew that he wasn't going to change his philosophy or his system, didn't back him in the summer with some of the players in the position that he wanted. Because let's not forget, Ruben Amorim's first number one transfer target was Giovanni Kenda to play at right wing back. So his first option as a signing was, I wanted a right wing back. Obviously didn't get him because Chelsea swooped in and got that deal done. And he also, in the summer, wanted a midfielder. And it was the club that decided to not go for a midfielder and to go for a striker instead. So they are partly to blame for the current situation, just as much as Amorim and just as much as the players as well. Like everybody's getting it, got it. Has had a hand to play in where we are now. But ultimately, the buck stops at Ruben Amorim, because there are things that he can do to try to change the situation, i.e., picking different players and putting them in different positions, changing, the formation on the pitch as well to get the best out of some of the players you've got. But he's too stubborn to do that, and that's on him. That's completely on Ruben Amorim. But I do think there's mistakes all around. Obviously the lack of, that pivot in the summer of not going for a midfielder and maybe going for a striker, going for a striker instead. Even though we needed goals though as well, but but then also, the players have been disgraceful as well. That performance against Brentford was up there with one of the worst I think I've witnessed for a while anyway, and that's saying something for this team and this group of some of these groups of players as well, because they put in some absolute stinking performances. And then obviously Amorim's ultimately the one that's picking the players, one that's picking the system and picking the formation. So it's all on him ultimately. But yeah, give us your thoughts, because I know some of you in previous videos have been saying about the board not wanting to sack Amorim because they want to save face and stuff like that as well. Give us your thoughts on that in the comments below, as I'm sure you will. Now, Fabrizio Romano on the situation said that Manchester United is still respecting Ruben Amorim, still waiting to see an improvement that's really needed starting from next game probably, so that can't be too long for sure. The situation of Ruben Amorim remains one to watch for sure. I am not here saying that Amorim is absolutely safe. Amorim's job is not absolutely safe because Manchester United want to see results. So so it seems like, going off of that from what Fabrizio Romano is saying, that is there maybe at that stage now where we need to start seeing the results. We need, which is clear, we do need to start seeing results on the pitch, and that sort of honeymoon period, or that, last season, the forgiveness that Amorim got after last season's because of everything else that was maybe going on behind the scenes and everything that he had to contend with that we don't see. But Amorim said in press conferences, and the changing of the environment was key, from like Wilcox and Broada and people like that. That's what you kept hearing all summer, changing the environment, changing the... all of those bits behind the scenes. So there was clearly issues off the pitch as well that's had to be contended with. But that's kind of pass that he got from that forgiveness for how we finished last season, I think is evaporated, and they now need to start seeing some results. And if we don't get the results, then obviously he's going to lose his job ultimately, isn't he? But yeah, give us your thoughts and feelings on that in the comments. Now let's go through. There's been some talk about potential replacements as well. So firstly, Alex Crook said, should Ruben Amorim be dismissed, Manchester United's preference is to appoint a successor with prior experience in English football. And I can see pros and cons to going down that road. There's plenty of managers that have, been successful in the Premier League without any prior Premier League experience. But then we've been down that road the last couple of managers and it hasn't exactly worked. So maybe they do want to flip and go for somebody that actually has a bit more experience at managing in the Premier League as well. So, but yeah, that's interesting. With English football experience. Now, one manager that does have English football experience is Gareth Southgate, and so Fabrizio Romano has had the following to say on that situation. So I'm not aware of any meeting. So this is when he was talking about a direct meeting between, talking about the rumours that have been going around the last couple of days about Sir Jim having a meeting with Gareth Southgate, so Romano said, no, he's not aware of any meeting. I'm not aware of any direct contact. I'm not aware of any negotiation. I told you yesterday that the relationship between people at Ineos is very good with Gareth Southgate, and that's why we have these links. But at the moment, I am not aware of a concrete negotiation. I'm not aware of any proposal. I'm not aware of Manchester United going around and telling managers, Southgate or anyone else, like, we want you to be the new boss. So Fabrizio Romano is just saying, look, because Ineos admire Gareth Southgate, I think that's maybe a Dave Brailsford thing. There's some sort of connection there as well, if memory serves me correctly. But at the moment, there's nothing in it. There's no meeting, nothing like that. So debunking the kind of stories which have been going around regarding Sir Jim meeting Gareth Southgate, which is not true, according to Fabrizio Romano. Now, another potential option would be Michael Carrick. So Michael Carrick would be tempted by a return to Manchester United. The club have started to work on a contingency plan if results do not improve and Ruben Amorim is sacked. This is likely to comprise of a list of potential short-term options. So Alex Crook saying that Michael Carrick potentially could be tempted to come back to United, and that they're starting to work on contingency plans. He did say as well that maybe it would be like a short-term option, so i.e. potentially Carrick as Ruben Amorim's replacement as an interim until they decide what they want to do with, permanent solutions for managers. But they've got to start to be, surely they're in that position now where they're starting to look at and at least have those sort of conversations behind the scenes as well, because I think they'd be naive to not do that and not have something lined up if things don't improve. Now, Ben Jacobs has had the following to say. So if Oliver Glasner was offered the Manchester United job, he would take it in a heartbeat. So Glasner is on he's doing the rounds in the media around a potential replacement for Ruben Amorim. Ben Jacobs also went on to say, though, that Areola hasn't signed a new deal at Bournemouth yet and is believed to have a release clause. So that could be one that maybe get Carrick in interim and then go for Areola next summer as a way to save money or save compensation. And then also Marco Silva's contract is also understood to have a release clause. So there are options. And obviously, if you go back to the first one that Alex Crook was saying around English football experience, they would obviously all tick that box as well. On Areola, who seems to be, one of the favourites going around in the media at the moment, Alex Crook said that Andoni Areola is another manager admired by Manchester United. Bournemouth, where Areola currently manages, could be open to an approach as his contract nears its end this season, but all of it's just noise at the moment. Nothing's going to be happening this week. We don't even know if it depends on the result at this weekend as well. I would imagine that there'll be something like if the worst were to happen and we lose, I can't see how it continues personally. I don't see how, as owners and CEOs and directors, you could accept that as a acceptable start to this season with the current form and obviously all the noise and the pressure and everything like that around. It's unsustainable to continue that way. Whether we beat Sunderland at the weekend, maybe it buys them a little bit more time, but then our next run of games and fixtures are not exactly kind. There are no easy games in the Premier League anymore. So and then maybe they are starting to look at potential options and replacements, but nothing's going to be happening this week. It's just all noise at the moment and all speculation. We're just going to need to wait and see what happens. But give us your thoughts on all of that in the comments below, as I am sure that you will. But the reality is, if nothing changes, then it's going to be inevitable, I think, because the proof is there. We're incapable of winning 2 games in a row or 2 games back to back, which is absolutely shocking. And one of those reasons is his pig-headedness, where he just will not change anything. And one of the players that he seemingly won't change is Bayindir. And I saw this from Statman Dave. So Altay Bayindir's 54% save percentage in the Premier League this season is the worst rate of any goalkeeper to have played in every game so far. So we statistically have the worst performing goalkeeper in the Premier League. We've signed a young up-and-coming goalkeeper who had one of the highest save percentages across Europe last season, still yet to make an appearance. And if he does not give Saint-Lemons a chance this weekend, then I think it's It's almost like it's like he's asking to be sacked at that stage. I think it's almost self-sabotage, in my opinion. Surely you cannot persist with Altay Bayindir, who is statistically, according to Statman Dave, the worst save rate of any goalkeeper in the Premier League so far that's played all the games. That is insane to me. And yeah, that's one of many decisions that Amorim's got to make at the weekend as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what he decides to do. Now let's go through some transfer news. So Graham Bailey had the following to say regarding Ruben Neves. So Ruben Neves is a fascinating figure and a player Man United have long admired, even before he joined Wolves during his Porto days. Now 28, many feel he could be coming into his prime years, and he could be available for free in 2026. In terms of the Premier League and Man United, he is certainly one who I could see at Old Trafford if he doesn't sign a new deal. He loved playing in England, so that came from Graham Bailey suggesting, I didn't realise he was out of contract in 2026, and there has been a lot of rumours regarding Neves coming to United potentially in January as a cheap option. 28 years old, Premier League experienced as well. I think could certainly do a good job in our midfield. Was a player that I really, really rated while he was at Wolves as well, and definitely somebody that I would have taken at United, and definitely probably someone I would bring back. The question mark is he's on like £400,000 a week in Saudi, so he's going to need to clearly take a significant pay cut to come to United. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one. It is a name that we are potentially linked with. I would put him up there with Baleba and Wharton and Elliot Anderson and all of these names that we've been linked with over the last few weeks for the midfield. I would say Neves is potentially one to keep an eye on anyway, but give us your shouts on that in the comments below. And then the final story I've got for you is Malacia's back. Yay! So Tyrell Malacia is given another chance by Manchester United. The left-back seemed to have been left out, but has been brought back into the first team with immediate effect. The Dutchman is again part of Manchester United squad. With immediate effect, Malacia is again part of Ruben Amorim's group. Ruben Amorim is going to give the left-back a serious chance to fight back into the team, and so Malacia may be able to make a game minutes again for the first time since January 26th. So that came from a good Dutch journalist, been reposted by like Andy Mitten and everything like that. So Tyrell Malacia, the saviour, is back for Manchester United, and he's clearly going to help us going forward and break that record of not winning back-to-back Premier League games as well. And but it is what it is. He's obviously a contracted employee of Manchester United and clearly not causing issues or anything behind the scenes. I think Samuel Lucas did say he's not being brought back in by Amorim as a way that he sees him as a saviour for the season or anything. I was a bit tongue-in-cheek when I said that before. It's just obviously you need to do something with him. He's a paid professional footballer on decent wages. You know, he's an employee of Man United, so he's back in the first team. Whether he'll get any minutes or not, who knows? But yeah, give us your thoughts on Malacia's return. I'm sure you're all going to be buzzing about that one in the comments below. Let me know what you think about all the other topics discussed in today's video. That's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer updates. Don't forget to smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.